President Trump, I just saw your press conference with President Putin, and it was embarrassing. I mean, you stood there like a little wet noodle, like a little fanboy. I mean, I was asking myself, when are you going to ask him for an autograph or for a selfie or something like that?
Arnold said this on air. And no, it's not a joke, it's not edited, and it's not another fake tweet. It was live, with a live audience, cameras, hosts, and reactions that couldn't be faked. And, as if that weren't enough, at the center of this story was Melania. Yes, the same one who usually stays silent, smiles, and pretends that none of this concerns her. Today, we'll break down exactly what Arnold said, and why it caused such a storm. We'll talk about the rumors that started spreading across the internet at the speed of a viral TikTok. We'll take a look at Melania's reaction. And she, by the way, was not one to dismiss it with a simple, "Oh, I'm just tired." Most importantly, we'll discuss why all this could turn out to be a serious headache for Donald Trump. Or on the contrary, his new strategy. Anything is possible. Schwarzenegger and Trump are not just two famous names. They are two people who have been unable to stand each other for years. They have a long-standing, almost soap opera-like feud, complete with jibes, harsh statements, and moments that make PR people clutch their heads in despair. The first significant public conflict between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Donald Trump occurred in 2016, when Trump became the Republican presidential candidate. At the time, Schwarzenegger, who had replaced Trump as host of The Apprentice, publicly spoke out against him. Schwarzenegger said that Trump was not fit to be president, and that his rhetoric was dividing the country. Trump did not hold back either, taking a jab at Arnold.
Businessman Donald Trump.
For Donald Trump, the first Republican debate was either a great victory
I want to run as the Republican nominee.
or a big defeat.
I don't think they like me very much.
There's no denying Trump was the star attraction, and leave it to the billionaire to lead it off with a chorus of boos.
Who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party.
These statements marked the beginning of their open disagreements. However, Schwarzenegger's truly sharp and public attacks on Trump began after Trump became president. One of the most memorable moments was Schwarzenegger's criticism of Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville in 2017. Schwarzenegger sharply condemned Trump for what he saw as his failure to adequately condemn the actions of white nationalists and extremists, stating that there can be no two sides when it comes to hatred. This statement became a defining moment in their conflict, which continued throughout Trump's 4 years in office. Since then, Schwarzenegger has continued to publicly criticize Trump for his leadership style, saying that he is destroying the foundations of democracy and inciting hatred in society.
Arnold, so everybody says that Donald Trump, that you were Donald Trump before Donald Trump was Donald Trump. You back at Donald Trump, right?
The relationship between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Donald Trump has heated up again, but this time against the backdrop of Trump's 2024 election campaign. And despite the fact that they were once on the same political team, everything that once connected them now seems to have disappeared in the shadow of their fundamental differences. Schwarzenegger, who has always put democratic values and the idea of unity first, has once again spoken his mind, and his opinion, to put it mildly, leaves no room for doubt. He has once again opened his mouth to publicly condemn Trump, saying that his return to politics is nothing short of a disaster. Arnold is convinced that Trump continues to stir up hatred and deepen divisions in society using his usual love of harsh rhetoric, which in his opinion only destroys the already fragile unity of the country. And here, there was no mention of parties or political games. The talk was about American society and its future.
Wow, the ratings are in and Arnold Schwarzenegger got swamped or destroyed.
I think we got it.
For those of you who don't know what swamped means. And why did you waste a chance to say terminated? Anyways, by comparison to the ratings machine, DJT, so much for being a movie star, and that was season 1 compared to season 14 of The Original Apprentice. Now compare him to my season 1. But who cares? He supported Kasich and Hillary.
Trump's response was expected, but oddly enough, Schwarzenegger did not remain on the sidelines. He publicly declared his support for those candidates who, in his opinion, could return America to a path of unity and respect for democratic values. Despite his Republican affiliation, Schwarzenegger noted that he could not support Trump because he continues to divide the country's political landscape instead of uniting it. This is no longer just politics, but a real drama in which Arnold's personal beliefs clash violently with his party loyalty.
I am running for president this year. I want to make sure that our penguins and zebras won't emigrate and that all Chinese restaurants will be closed. Hakuna Matata, Arnold is back. I need to help our people to understand that America is great and that Trump and Biden are bobos.
Thus, their renewed tensions serve as an excellent example of how political differences can escalate into a genuine battle for the future of the country. Arnold has clearly shown that being a patriot and a supporter of unity is more important to him than simply following his party for the sake of something abstract. And here it doesn't matter who is right and who is wrong. The main thing is that polarization is growing, and we, the viewers of this show, are just watching and waiting for new episodes. Today, Arnold Schwarzenegger is going beyond party politics and expressing his support for Vice President Kamala Harris, while warning that a possible second term for Donald Trump would lead to even greater division in the country and 4 years of empty talk. In his post on the X platform, he stated that he does not support either party and remains critical of politics in general. I don't really support anyone. I'm not afraid to express my views, but at the same time, I don't like politics and I don't trust most politicians, Schwarzenegger wrote in a long message on his Twitter account.
What do you think about Donald Trump running for president again?
You know, I think that's the past. And I think that we have to march into the future. And I think there are very talented people in this country on the Republican side that can run. So I will go, look in the future about it.
I also understand that people are interested in my opinion because I'm not just a celebrity. I was a Republican governor, he explained, recalling that he served as governor of California from 2003 to 2011. Schwarzenegger candidly admitted that he currently does not like any of the political parties. He emphasized that Republicans have lost their ideals, such as support for the free market, increase the budget deficit, and deny the results of the election. On the other hand, he believes that Democrats are not solving the deficit problem and are even exacerbating the situation in cities where crime rates are rising. At 77, Schwarzenegger expressed concern about the current state of politics in the U.S. and noted that the problems facing the country are far from being solved by the proposals of either side. Schwarzenegger went on to explain that his dissatisfaction with politics has become stronger than ever. He noted that if a person is not involved in political squabbles, they probably share his feelings. I just want to disconnect from all of this. But unfortunately, I can't, he said, expressing his disappointment. Without directly mentioning Donald Trump by name, Schwarzenegger harshly criticized the president, telling his 5 million followers that rejecting the results of an election is, in his opinion, the most un-American thing one can do.
As an immigrant to this country, I would like to say a few words to my fellow Americans. President Trump sought to overturn the results of an election, and of a fair election. He sought a coup by misleading people with lies.
For someone like me, who interacts with people all over the world and remembers that America is a shining city on a hill, calling the country a garbage dump for the world is not only unpatriotic, it makes me truly angry, he added. Concluding his message, Schwarzenegger emphasized that being an American has always been more important to him than being a Republican. That is why, he said, he supports Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in this election, stating that he will vote for them. Schwarzenegger continued his speech, explaining that he was sharing his thoughts because he was sure that many shared his feelings. You probably don't recognize your country, and you are absolutely right to be angry, he said, touching on important issues facing society. He added that people are dissatisfied with the current state of affairs and have every right to be. He also noted that Washington is doing nothing on important issues such as the national debt and immigration reform.
Hey Donald, I have a great idea. Why don't we switch jobs? You take over TV because you're such an expert in ratings, and I take over your job. And then people can finally sleep comfortably again.
Which is causing even greater frustration. The only ones who benefit from all this nonsense are politicians who use these issues as topics for their election campaigns to win elections and secure government positions. But this isn't just a game for them. For us, ordinary Americans, this is real life. We should be furious, Schwarzenegger emphasized, expressing his dissatisfaction with the inaction of politicians and the injustice in the political process. For Melania Trump, Donald Trump's wife, Arnold Schwarzenegger's public statements were a serious emotional blow. This is because she has always tried to avoid political conflicts and remain in the shadows. Melania almost never speaks openly about politics, preferring to remain reserved and focus on more personal and humanitarian issues. Her desire to stay out of public politics and conflicts is likely explained by her desire to protect her family and maintain her image in the public eye.
So, President Trump, I know you really want to be an action hero, right? So take it from the Terminator. You're only supposed to go back in time to protect future generations.
Come with me if you want to live.
But your administration attempts to go back in time to rescue the coal industry, which is actually a threat to future generations.
When Schwarzenegger harshly criticized Trump's actions without mentioning him directly, pointing to his refusal to acknowledge the election results, Melania undoubtedly found herself in a difficult situation. This statement was not only an attack on her husband, but on their entire family. Even if she herself is not actively involved in politics, as the wife of a former president, she inevitably perceives such critical remarks as a personal insult. After all, any public accusations against Donald Trump instantly become part of her personal history and perception.
And they have. Should I imitate it? You know, my wife gets very upset when I do this. She said, darling, it's not presidential. I said, yeah, but people like it. Should I do it or not?
In addition, Melania has always been a more private person, seeking to avoid public disputes and harsh political statements. That is why Schwarzenegger's words about her family could have been an unexpected and painful moment for her. She did not choose the path of public opposition or confrontation with her husband's political opponents, preferring to focus on her own affairs. However, when high-profile figures such as Schwarzenegger start discussing her husband, it becomes difficult to ignore, especially when it comes to such sensitive issues as refusing to acknowledge election results. For Melania, this has also been an emotionally difficult time because in the US political climate, where ideological divisions are extremely deep, every move and every word directed at Trump becomes the subject of intense scrutiny. She found herself caught up in this cycle of discussion, where every comment about her husband also applies to her. Thus, any public attacks, even if not directed at her, become part of her life, creating an internal conflict between her desire to maintain her privacy and the need to respond to criticism. In addition, public pressure on Melania, as the First Lady, has always been significant. People expected her to behave in a certain way, support her husband, and maintain the image of a happy and loyal wife. Moments such as Schwarzenegger's comments force her to think again and again about her role and how she is perceived by the public. Perhaps she feels that despite all her efforts to avoid political conflicts, she still finds herself in the spotlight because of her husband and his political career. In addition, Schwarzenegger emphasized that for Americans, this is not a game. This is their real life. And perhaps Melania, being on the sidelines of political disputes, feels that this burden falls on her as a woman close to a political figure. For her and her family, it is not always clear where personal life ends and politics begins, and statements of this kind can add uncertainty and internal tension. Finally, it is worth noting that Melania may have felt not only hurt, but also irritated that her husband's personal life and actions are the subject of constant public discussion. Despite all her efforts to maintain distance and focus on her role as a mother and wife, she once again finds herself at the center of heated political discussions, which may cause her to feel tired and disappointed.
So, I mean, it's like, so he's totally wrong. But I mean, so what? Let him entertain us. Let him go around and give speeches about cats and...
Schwarzenegger's public statements about Trump and his political views have had a big impact on his family, including Melania. The emotional tension these comments create isn't just about Trump. Melania, although she tries to avoid political discussions, is still forced to perceive such moments as personal attacks. This highlights how difficult it is to remain impartial when you are part of a high-profile politician's family. By criticizing Trump, Schwarzenegger has invaded Melania's personal space, who has always sought to remain out of public politics.
we are.
Would you have married Donald Trump if you had a crystal ball that said he would be president?
That's a interesting question.
Furthermore, it is important to understand that such moments may not only be painful experiences for Melania, but also opportunities to rethink her role in the political process. When her family is in the public eye, she faces constant pressure even if she does not express her political preferences. This creates an internal conflict, as she has to remain in the shadows of political life while being an integral part of public discourse. In the
Let's seize this moment and create a country for tomorrow.
Context of the current political situation in the U.S., where polarization and tension between parties are intensifying, it is becoming increasingly difficult for Melania to avoid becoming involved in political discussions. Every new public attack or criticism of Trump automatically turns into a discussion about her as well. And although she would probably prefer to stay out of political battles, such situations force her to respond to what is happening, even if she tries not to get involved. This case shows how politics and personal life are intertwined, and how difficult it is to be part of public life, even if you try to stay out of it. Melania, like any other woman close to a political figure, inevitably becomes part of this process.